Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Daily Debate. My name is Ahmed Nader and tonight we're going to focus on the Egyptian-Serbian relations as President Abdel Fattah received the President of Serbia, Alexander Vučić, at the Ittihadiyya Presidential Palace on Saturday. Of course, with the anthems being played of both countries and with the guard of honor being displayed on Saturday and for today. After we did see the talks and the press conference that took place yesterday between President Abdel Fattah and his Serbian counterpart, today we see the economic part of the bilateral relations and the future of it in the attendance of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbuli and the President of Serbia in the Egyptian-Serbian Business Forum. We will be starting straight away with the main top stories for today as President Abdel Fattah received the credentials of 12 new ambassadors to Cairo. They included ambassadors of the USA, Burundi, Morocco, France, Albania, Sudan, Iraq, Somalia, Cote d'Ivoire, Mozambique, Saudi Arabia and Tajikistan. The President welcomed the new ambassadors, wishing them success on their missions and asserted the Egyptian keen interest in boosting bilateral relations with their countries and coordination over issues of mutual concern. On another front and on his social media account, President Abdel Fattah said that he followed up with great concern the heinous assassination attempt which targeted the former American President Donald Trump, stressing the Egyptian full condemnation of the event. The head of state wished the American presidential candidate a speedy recovery and expressed hope that the U.S. election campaigns will resume in a peaceful way, far from any form of terror, of violence or hatred. And we return to the main topic for tonight, the Egyptian-Serbian relations, 116 years of bilateral relations between both great countries and both great peoples. As I did say, that President Abdel Fattah received his counterpart from Serbia, Alexander Vučić, yesterday. As for today, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbuli said that Egypt and Serbia share significant cooperation and strategic partnership ties. He was speaking before the Egyptian-Serbian Business Forum that he jointly presided over with the Serbian President Alexander Vučić in Cairo on Sunday. We have the details in the upcoming report. Stay tuned.
Prime Minister Mustafa Madbuli said Egypt and Serbia share distinguished political relations for more than 100 years that were boosted with strong partnership ties. The Prime Minister was speaking at the opening of the Egyptian-Serbian Business Forum with Serbian President Alexander Vučić in Cairo on Sunday, with the participation of a large number of Egyptian and Serbia corporate executives and chambers of commerce representatives. Madbuli said the forum will establish a new era of economic relations and will open new cooperation and joint investment opportunities between Egypt and Serbia, as both countries share a commitment to boost bilateral ties across all fields. The head of the government said the current forum is a boost for joint cooperation that has been remarkably enhanced since President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's visit to Serbia in July 2022. Madbuli also hailed the signing of the free trade agreement between Cairo and Belgrade during the current visit by the Serbian president, and said the agreement will double their trade exchange over the 5 coming years. He said Serbia is one of the largest Western Balkan nations and is a transit for Egyptian products to the region, while Egypt is a gateway for Serbia into the African continent. For his part, Serbian President Alexander Vučić hailed Egyptian government's efforts to maintain stability and continue its development drive amid a turbulent region, adding that Serbia supports these efforts. Vučić said both countries enjoy distinguished friendship and we look forward to cementing it. The Serbian president said Egypt enjoys great tourism among other potentials, adding that the new administrative capital is a proof that dreams can be achieved. He also said areas of joint cooperation include agriculture, scientific research, technological development and information and communications. Vučić said a new era of the relations between Egypt and Serbia will start in the coming phase and that both sides are working on increasing trade exchange.
We will be heading to a report covering the presidential activities of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi over the past week. Stay tuned.
President Abdel al-Sisi welcomed a Sudanese delegation participating in the Sudanese Political and Civil Forces Conference hosted by Egypt. President Abdel al-Sisi congratulates President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa on his election victory and his commencement of a new presidential term. President Abdel al-Sisi conducts an inspection tour at the Egyptian Military Academy. President Abdel al-Sisi welcomes Mr. William Burns, the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, and his accompanying delegation. President Abdel al-Sisi and the First Lady received the Serbian President and his wife at the Ittihadiyya Palace. President Abdel al-Sisi and his Serbian counterpart Alexander Vučić witnessed the signing of a number of bilateral agreements between the two countries and hold a joint press conference.
And we will be heading to the report of the episode for tonight, focusing on the main topic as President Abdel al-Sisi received the Serbian President Alexander Vučić and focusing on the bilateral ties and promoting the bilateral relations between Egypt and Serbia, more specifically in the field of economy and trade. We have more details in the upcoming report. Stay tuned.
President Abdel al-Sisi and his Serbian counterpart Alexander Vučić affirmed on Saturday their common aspirations to advance bilateral relations and develop cooperation between the two countries. This came during a press conference as the two leaders witnessed the signing of several deals between the two countries after a summit held at the Ittihadiyya Palace. President Sisi said that we look forward to sharing our diverse experiences and exchanging expertise for the benefit of enhancing peace and stability in the region and the world. For his part, the Serbian president praised President Abdel al-Sisi's leadership, especially in managing the country amidst significant challenges. Sisi and his Serbian counterpart expressed a strong desire to build on the positive momentum observed in the Egyptian-Serbian partnership and effectuate a flurry of MOUs and agreements signed ahead of the press conference. The deals span several domains, include trade, labor and employment, communications and information technology, antiquities, and museums and customs. The two sides viewed these deals as a step towards bolstering economic cooperation further between Egypt and Serbia. The two leaders also had in-depth discussions on cooperation at economic, investment and military levels during their talks. On regional international crises during the joint press conference, both presidents stressed the need to establish calm and peace in conflict zones such as Ukraine, Sudan and Libya. Sisi added that peace must be achieved in these zones at the earliest opportunity. On the Israeli war in Gaza, Sisi reiterated the call for an immediate and comprehensive ceasefire in the Strip, stressing the need to stop targeting civilians in Gaza. He also emphasized Cairo's rejection of the forced displacement of Palestinians, the liquidation of the Palestinian cause, and the use of Rafah crossing as a tool to tighten the siege on the Gazans. Furthermore, the two sides discussed developments in the Western Balkans region, where el-Sisi underscored the Serbian role in establishing stability and enhancing cooperation in this region.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me over the program for tonight to be focusing on such an important topic, the Egyptian-Serbian relations, is Dr. Mohamed Abdel Halim, the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime, Doctor. Of course, we are speaking tonight and focusing today on the Egyptian-Serbian bilateral relations. We have seen yesterday the news or the press conference following the meeting of President Abdel al-Sisi with the Serbian counterpart Alexander Vučić all over the day, and for Sunday the meeting of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbuli with the Serbian President at the Egyptian-Serbian Business Forum. How do you see the importance of promoting those bilateral ties between both great nations, which spans over 116 years?
Right, Lucio, yeah. It seems to be quite, a very long period of consulatic ties and diplomatic relations between the Serbian side on the one hand, and in the meantime the Egyptian presidency, actually, as you might have said rightly now, that it goes back actually to 116 years, so to speak. But to my own understanding, it would go actually to a bit more than that, about 700 or 800 years from religious point of view. I mean, carrying cultural ties and civilized messages and religious highlightings. I still remember, that the religious side would seem to be quite one of the major dimensions and one of the most important distinguished bilateral ties that would, connect both sides, that is the Serbian one and the Egyptian on the other hand. That Sava, one of the saints of, of Serbia, was directing his own way towards the St. Catherine monastery, actually. A religious man of God, Christian one indeed, actually heading towards St. Catherine Church or monastery, just to receive the teachings of Jesus Christ at the hands of monks and priests of the Egyptian cathedrals, actually. Directing him into the right path to be taken, and in the meantime into the religious Christian teachings that will be adapted during the course of his own journey of returning again to Belgrade. That early sign of noticeable friendliness and sense of tolerance on the part of the Egyptian monks and the religious men of God, actually, at the monastery of St. Catherine, was one of the greatest signs of which the man, when he returned again to his own homeland, was trying to propagate and establishing a bridge of friendliness and sense of strong ties that would stem out from the religious side and the religious point of view. Then after that, during the 60s, I think during the early days of late President Gamal Abdel Nasser and Joseph Broz Tito, as much as the Yugoslavian Nehru, the Indian Nehru, and the Yugoslavian Joseph Broz Tito and Gamal Abdel Nasser, what consolidated the ties during the early 60s to the greater extent of entering into one preservative and one non-alignment movement, the sort of the movement that was keeping all the rights of humanity, defending peace roads to be initiated and to be taken, and in the meantime helping the poor and impoverished, and actually defending the rights of almost all the simple and the rustic people that are some instances actually to be deprived of their own simple rights. And in the meantime, the self-same movement that is very much connected to the positive neutralism, very much connected to non-alignment movement, both of which would defend the rights of the people here, there, and everywhere. You know, I mean, to the extent of, you know, I mean, propagating Egypt at the early 60s as one of the most strong nations, actually calling for its own simple rights as much as defending the rights of the other people, not only the African states, but actually for a greater extent the European ones in the meantime. All these previous activities and historic ties and very much religious, you know, relations and the bilateral connections between the Serbian side as much as the Egyptian one indeed would give us a clear testimony to the fact that, you know, the Serbian side is very much considering and appreciating and singing the praises of the Egyptian interferences for peaceful routes and for diplomatic notions actually to try to pacify and to put an end for the international struggles as well. In the meantime, this very good, clear cut portrait of a peaceful nation, of a sort of a nation that does not meddle or interfere into the other nations' internal affairs, actually, would be highly glorified and would be highly clarified to the extent when, you know, Alexander Vučić did come a couple of days ago to Egypt, was, you know, I mean, singing the praises of Mr. President Fattah al-Sisi to a great extent, representing how successful his own, you know, experience in ruling and in defending and of talking for the rights of his own people as much as the rights of the African states in the meantime, in more than one respect throughout a couple of days.
Doctor, of course, we will be speaking more about the praises that we have seen by the Serbian President Alexander Vučić to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the administrative capital as well, but we'll be having a quick break and we'll be returning once again to you, so stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me over the program for tonight Dr. Mohamed Abdel Halim, the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much for being with us once again. Before the break, we were speaking about the historical relations between Egypt and Serbia. I've mentioned that it spans more than 700 or 800 years, not just about the most recent 116 years. And we have seen yesterday the press conference that took place following the meeting and following the talks of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi with the Serbian counterpart Alexander Vučić, speaking about President al-Sisi, praising the achievements that we have had in terms of infrastructure and building new cities and building a new capital. In specific, the Serbian president mentioning that this is a dream which had come true.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I still remember the Wade Youth Forum about 4 or 5 years ago. You know, I mean, Mr. President Fattah al-Sisi was very much insisting of pushing forward the dreams of youth actually into a very much successful stage, through the aid of which they can really establish their own real interests in life, political, economic, as much as cultural, to the extent that he would drive them, you know, I mean, into achieving their own, you know, I mean, projects, their own mega projects and minimal projects. In the meantime, telling them that think of your own dreams straightforwardly and directly. Be as very much in distress to your own path that you did select in your own life. Dreams would never ever fall by lapse of time. They would seem to be quite coming to a realistic step in one moment or another. The self-same words that to a greater extent, to my own astonishment actually, would be echoed by Alexander Vučić in today's words when he did say that you've had a dream, you insisted in so doing or doing so, of realizing it to a great extent, and the result was very much flourishing, was very much astonishing. That is the establishment of the new administrative capital that would seem to be quite a very much a prodigious project, you know, achieving a great deal of dreams. In the meantime, representing his own deep encouragement as much as deep enthusiastic, you know, belief, as much as his own deep admiration and if not fascination with the procedures and the attainments and the sort of the achievements that Mr. President Fattah al-Sisi did achieve. He did say it in today's words so straightforwardly that I do admire your own prodigious achievements and like the way you reign and the way you act and react and the way you establish your own dreams in such a way as to be very much in realistic grounding actually in very few months if not years. These words coming from that sort of realistic man, coming from the Western world, would be a clear testimony to his own real admiration of the very courageous and successful steps that have been taken. Those people, you know, are very much realistic to a great extent. They are not dreamy words. They are not, you know, I mean, semi-dreamy figures. They are very much straightforward, very much realistic. Whenever they say a word, they meant it, actually. They meant what they have said.
Yes.
That's why, I mean, he said it, actually, so publicly publicizing his own straightforward message to the Western world that I am to be hosted by a man who is very much successful among, you know, people who are very much highly civilized. A certain individual sort of gesture of mutual identification between the Serbian side as much as the Egyptian way of life had been, you know, testified by yesterday's visit of the First Lady, that is the First Lady of Tamara Fortvich, with our own First Lady, actually, visiting the Museum of Civilization of Culture. I mean, representing her own signs of admiration for, you know, a sort of civilization that would go back to more than 7,000 years ago. You know, I mean, touching on, in the meantime, the very much successful visit on the part of His Excellency Mr. President Abdel to Belgrade a couple of years ago in 2022. A sort of a very much successful visit that resulted in a large number of memorandum of understanding, as much as, you know, I mean, signing contracts and you know, what you might call, you know, very much successful agreements on both sides from cultural point of view, artistic values, theatrical interpretations and medical interferences, agricultural instruments, and almost all these sides. The sort of the thing that the Serbian side is very much well known and very much being famous for, particularly the agricultural side. Side by side, the artistic touches, actually, I think that that sort of visit was very much successful, that paved the way for today's meeting and today's summit. That was part of his own vast tours. You know, I mean, I still remember that a couple of years ago, His Excellency Mr. President Abdel did visit the 3B, that is Paris, Belgrade, and Berlin in the meantime. Very much vast tours. That, you know, Alexander Vučić, in today's words, did mention, representing the very much successful and glorious side of the visits and the tours on the part of the presidential Egyptian authority that would bring, you know, I mean, you know, and in the meantime, bridge the gap and represent signs of communicability among nations, easing the tussles and pacifying the problematic issues, as much as in the meantime would bring the notions of those wide desperate nations into one main fundamental goal, which is the peace towards the whole human people, as much as the authenticity for almost all the humanity. That sort of cultural touches and very much civilized notions and the mutual identification between the Egyptian and the Serbian side and the previous religious details throughout deeply rooted touches, actually, of going back throughout 800 years would give us a clear testimony to how, you know, I mean, the notions are very much, you know, a bit, you know, I mean, near to each other in today's meeting. A sort of an influence that would be practiced not only from the religious point of view and the cultural tie, but in the meantime would have its own tones and overshadow on the economic as much as on the free trade zone and the free trade treatment. Well, I myself, I do really believe that between politics and between economy, there is a very thin line. If one side actually is to be highly flourishing, it would have its own direct impact on the other, and vice versa. And in the meantime, if the economy of one individual certain state or certain individual nation is very much flourishing, it would represent the very much glorious political side of it. Because this is the language of politics in today's terminology, and a sort of a word that seems to be quite full of turmoils and mutual interests and mutual, you know, I mean, there is no extreme sense of love, nor even extreme sense of hatred, just mutual interests, win-win situation. And this is what is happening actually between the Serbian side and the Egyptian presidency actually. In more than one respect, today's Businessmen Forum would reflect and underline the great need for each single individual nation for the other counterpart. Not only in agriculture, but also in medicine, and training, and arts. I still remember that one fundamental artistic side, which is to be highly glorified, that is Reda Group, the sort of the artistic band that used to be quite directing towards Belgrade for a couple of years. Representing the signs of peace initiations and representing the artistic touches of the Eastern world, of how the Egyptians are not very much religiously, deeply rooted in the past, but in the meantime artistically, to the extent that they would exchange the sort of the direct and straightforward messages with the Serbian world of how, peaceful those dancers are, of how those musicians are very much keeping in touch with, the peace of humanity, and the sort of the straightforward direct messages that are to be addressed on the Serbian world to the whole world. In the meantime, I think in today's summit and meeting, well, I think, His Excellency, Mr. President Sisi, is very much aware of the beneficial side and of the sort of the economic stability of which the Serbian world is very much practicing. And in the meantime, the wide recognition, the acceptance of the sort of direct invitation of that sort of strong country to our own, presidential palace would represent to a greater extent, the sort of the wide recognition and acceptance of the Egyptian side, in a sense that it would help in somehow or another of easing the tussles and the struggles of trying to represent the Egyptian side of how, we did not close the Rafah crossing actually against all the humanitarian aids and the medical aids that are to be directed. In more than one respect, I think Mr. President Sisi is representing his sole individual invitation for almost all the nations that we are there all the time assisting and behind the Palestinian people, pushing them, representing their own simple rights of establishing their own homeland, as headed by the Eastern Jerusalem, of withdrawing to the border lines of the 4th of July, 1967, of establishing their own simple dreams of leading a very peaceful life and of stopping a ceasefire, reaching to a ceasefire at the end of the day. Because after, more than 10 months of struggle, of devastation, of demolition, one single individual claim and propagation on the part of the Egyptian presidency that we would never ever accept the relocation of the Palestinian people. We are there endorsing their own existence and their own return, and the return of the refugees to their own homelands again, and of establishing, as I've just said, of representing and of identifying their own simple right to live peacefully. I think that this is one of the major philosophic agendas actually that would be propagated from the sort of direct visit on the part of Alexander Vučić actually to Egypt, being side by side with the 140 countries that did declare and confess and accept the declaration of the Palestinian, of establishing a Palestinian state. I think that sort of invitation on the part of the Serbian world, as much as representing the role that is to be played by the Egyptian presidency actually to the Balkan countries, as because Mr. President Sisi, in his own words to Alexander Vučić yesterday, did thank him actually for his own interference to try to participate in the Balkan treatment and of widening, of stopping the sort of the wide demarcation and the line of demarcation of the Western world. So at all levels, from artistic point of view, on a cultural level, the military, connection and economic ties, I think the visit is very much approaches and very much healthy towards establishing sort of very strong ties, consulatic beliefs that came to be regarded, actually, as I just said, since quite a long period of time.
Yes, Doctor, you mentioned the importance of the economic ties between Egypt and Serbia, and this is the main topic for the other report for the daily debate for tonight. According to the statements made by Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, the bilateral ties between Egypt and Serbia economically are growing. We will be having more details regarding those statements at the Egyptian-Serbian Business Forum for today in the upcoming reports. Stay tuned.
Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said Egypt-Serbia relations are developing and improving. Previous visit of President Sisi to Serbia in 2022 represented a major impetus in relations between both countries in a way that helped increase level of bilateral cooperation. Prime Minister Madbouli noted that Egypt-Serbia economic relations are improving significantly, adding that Cairo is looking forward to fostering cooperation with Belgrade in a number of fields, including agriculture. Serbia aspires to promote cooperation with Egypt in agricultural field through a proposal to establish a joint company to invest in this sector. The proposal targets long-term Egyptian investment in the production of grains, especially wheat, corn and sunflower, given that the Balkan region is one of the largest exporters of those products. The exchange of trade between Egypt and Serbia reached $80.7 million in 2023, including $42.2 million in exports from Egypt. Egyptian-Serbian relations witnessed unprecedented prosperity. In July 2022, President Sisi paid his first official visit to the Serbian capital of Belgrade. In recent years, Egypt and Serbia increased coordination in multilateral organizations and forums and on international and regional levels.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Mohamed Abdel Halim, the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. Before the break, or before the report, we did see during the report more information regarding the Egyptian-Serbian Business Forum, the importance of growing the bilateral relations in terms of the economy, in terms of the foreign or the free trade agreements between Egypt and Serbia, to be attracting foreign direct investments in the near future. And before the report, you also mentioned, Doctor, the importance of not just the political development between both countries, not just the economic development between both countries, but on the cultural level, on the level of tourism as well. How do you see the importance of growing the economic fields between Egypt and Serbia, which would be leading to more interaction regarding culture and tourism as well?
Both countries are, as I've just said at the very beginning of the episode, are very much interested in the affairs of the other counterpart.
Yes.
You know, I mean, we have got more than one thing in common. We have got a large number of similarities in religious beliefs, in the way we would act and the way we behave, and in our own deep interest in cultural ties, as much as tourism. In the meantime, a large number of places in Egypt are very much monumental to the extent of attracting the attention of the Serbian tourists. This is one fascinating fact that Alexander Vučić, the president, would highlight on, and his own wife, Mrs. Tamara Vučić, actually would seem to be quite very much deeply interested in. In the meantime, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, into these words, is very much keeping an eye of exchanging what you might call the businessmen, plans of trying to pacify and of easing and of facilitating the facilities actually for both sides, such as establishing, a sort of a direct airline between Belgrade and Cairo and vice versa. In the meantime, giving the opportunity for the businessmen of both sides, the Serbian and the Egyptian, of getting into the other counterparts borderline without visa, for free, without paying, amounts of money, and much the same way that erasing all the problematic situations on the borderlines for both countries in a way that would enhance the trade, that would facilitate the, the one individual sort of window for businessmen, actually, that would help them and somehow bring their own investments. And I think we are very much in the right direction because, all the investors from all the European world would seem to be quite keeping an eye on the sort of dignity and stability and the sort of the peaceful resources and the sort of the roads and the establishment of bridges and the sort of the things that, Mr. President Fattah al-Sisi is keeping an eye on. To a greater extent, I think in today's words, Mr. Alexander Vučić did represent that we have had the same problem at the very beginning. At the early beginning of establishing these smart cities and these big roads and these huge buildings that would facilitate the investment, a large number of people of the Serbian side would criticize it at the very beginning. But by lapse of time, gradually they would reach to the inevitable conclusion that this is in their own interests, that this is in their own favor.
Yes.
That, it is only through that sort of individual way, through the pacifying the roads and establishing of these mega projects and administrative capital that would attract the attention of almost all the investors to come. To feel free, to try to deal, to give and take, and to try to establish their own mega projects actually on the Egyptian territorial land. A sort of the thing that would, in somehow or another, would help solving the problem of the market unemployment. So in the meantime, establishing and offering very much valuable profitable salaries for a large number of people who would seem to be quite devoid of any work, free from any sort of individual job that we would attain. So all this in our own interests, and in the meantime, the sort of the mutual investment on the part of the Serbian side, the Egyptian presidency actually is in somehow or another being enhanced into these words by his own Excellency Mr. Dr. Mustafa Madbouli.
Yes.
And in the meantime, one major fundamental factor that he would harp on and upon, the fact that you have got more than one thing in common between ourselves. And as such, I think that straightforwarding all these messages and representing the tours as much as attracting the attention of other Serbian tourists, in much the same way that sending a large number of Egyptian tourists to the Serbian side would, and somehow or another, bring very much strong messages for almost all the world that this is a sort of a very much peaceful country in which almost all the dreams would come true, not only from economic point of view, but artistic as much as ethical details in the meantime.
Yes, Doctor, finally, for the last couple of minutes of the episode for tonight, the importance of the free trade agreement between Egypt and Serbia. How do you think this will be increasing the investments, increasing the products going from here to there and vice versa?
The imports and exports are to be maximized to a greater extent. A large number of merchandised items would seem to be quite exchanged between both sides. A large number of shortages actually on the Serbian side would seem to be quite filled with the interference of the Egyptian side, in much the same way that agricultural instruments on the part of the Serbian side would be provided to the Egyptian factories. In the meantime, this will help solving the problem of the change of supply, the maximization of the prices, and the problem of the hard currency and the lack of the dollars in the meantime. And at the end of the day, would really find it very much suitable actually of solving a large number of economic problems and finding alternatives for the youth to find a sort of a job to be in rather than to be out.
Yes, Dr. Mohamed Abdel Halim, the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
My pleasure, sir.
Anytime. And this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight. Thank you for watching and goodbye.